All right. So, and just some general B2B stats, because we're talking B2B here, is, there's plenty of research out there, but it just supports, B2B people do use Facebook. A lot of people think it's not an appropriate place to advertise for B2B, but I tend to think differently. And I think it depends on your business model and who you're trying to go after. But there's plenty of ways to target, small businesses use Facebook. Marketers, 87 marketers use Facebook for advertising. Many B2B marketers do use Facebook ads. And I'm sure many have seen them on their feeds, all the different tools and and ads out there targeting B2B. So it could, budget notwithstanding, it should be part of the mix. I mean, there's plenty of ways to target, and we'll go through some of the exciting details on that. But generally, there's plenty of objectives about Facebook, whether it's just awareness of a company, boost traffic to your website, generate leads, drive conversions. You can target audiences based on age and demographics and titles and, interests and things like that, which we'll go through. And that's the beauty of Facebook, is the huge data set they have of targeting people. And we'll go through some of that. You can collect information on prospects and drive leads to sales teams. Of course, any local business, you can promote yourself through all the specific targeting that's available. Okay, now the fun part. If you're going to do I know it's fun. Tracking is always fun. At least for me it is anyway. But the point is you shouldn't really start a Facebook ad campaign unless you have the tracking in place. And that means a Facebook pixel, which you can get from the platform. We'll show that. But basically, the pixel is what drives better performance for campaigns. And it's a code that tracks users who are on Facebook who go to your website. And that way, as people click, Facebook picks up that information and optimizes campaigns based on users who visit your site. And those users have tons and tons of interests. So if you imagine that, if if you're bringing traffic to your website to perform actions, Facebook tries to emulate those people and sends ads to people who are more like those people who perform actions. So it's really about optimization, and you can't really do that without the Facebook pixel on the website. Like I said, you can add it to track your conversions, measure cross-device, mobile and desktop. Like I said, optimizes ad delivery based on people more likely to take action. Helps you create custom audiences like retargeting, so you can target people again. And of course, the beauty of that is to get people to come back and convert if they didn't do it the first time. So detail slide number 1 is about this pixel. You set up on your Facebook account under Event Manager. And not to get too much in the weeds, I included a link here, but you get this code and you put it in. Again, the other thing you need to do is either you hard code it on a, if you have a WordPress site, you can put it on a header plugin or your website's header, or have a developer do that, or use Google Tag Manager, which is a Google tool to track all tags on your website, which everybody should have anyway. If not, we can talk about that. But however it's done, you take the code and you put in the header of your website and make sure you're tracking all pages with it. There's lots of events you can track with this Facebook pixel so that you can track your performance of campaigns. Facebook has a bunch of standard events you can track. If your e-commerce, add to cart, payment information. For a nonprofit, there's a donate pixel event. There's leads and purchases and submit applications and even subscribe to newsletters. So there's a lot of events you can track, but it's very specific because you got to, align specific coding to the events. But it's just done with the Facebook pixel. Like here's an example of on a site, right? So this is using the Facebook pixel to track. And you can see there's on the right side is total events that are happening in a certain period. So you have page views is like every page, and you see complete registration is an event, a lead is an event, a contact form is an event, and a purchase is an event. So you can see all these campaigns, all these actions you can track, again, because of the pixel. So what's the rule? Add a pixel. All right, so now we're going to go into, so that's tracking part of it. That's the first step, okay? Now, after that's all set and ready to go, all the campaigns set up, then we can actually go in and create a campaign now. So there's lots of objectives for creating a campaign here. We'll focus on traffic building and lead generation for this. But, brand awareness is more about, reaching people in general without worrying about traffic. You just want overall reach. But, the consideration is more into website traffic. If you have an app, you can do app installs. If you want to optimize video views and then generate leads as well. And for e-commerce, there's more conversions and tracking sales and things like that. We don't have to cover everything in all detail, but for this, we'll focus on web traffic. So once you start creating the campaign, then there's a lot of other options, which I'll show everybody here about creating, subgroup of ad sets with different targeting options. You can do offers, budgets, scheduling your campaigns and determining the target audience and where the ads are going to be placed and optimization and bid options. And we'll show you all that. There is an option here if you're e-commerce to in your Facebook ads to create offers. Usually it comes with a, like you had a Shopify store, for example, you want to push a product and you want to create a promo code, that kind of thing. So you can do that online with a promo code. So it's a little detailed here, but you get to set up, your offer, how long it's going to run, and whether you can redeem it online or in the store with an offer code, things like that. And then you see what it looks like here, expiration date. And yeah, so when they click it, they go right to the offer page where you can do your promo code and get a discount. So that's an option you can do with Facebook if you're e-commerce. So set up a budget. It can be daily budget or a lifetime budget, depending on your own personal preference. Start date. If you want to do a short-term campaign, don't forget to set an end date. Facebook defaults to forever. So make sure you set that end date if you want to do it short-term. Okay. Custom audiences are audiences that are basically whether they're tracking people visiting your website or using your app or a customer list, which I'll show you that in a minute. So here's an example of what I do. Like here's my pixel, right? That's a source, and I'm tracking events on my website, right? So this is an example where you can track all website visitors in general to retarget them, or maybe specific pages on your website, which is probably the most common, right? So if I'm wanted to target, people who are visiting a certain page instead of every page, then I can retarget those people. A lot of times, like if you're targeting a certain insurance and you wanted to target life insurance page instead of disability insurance. So I'll just retarget people visiting the life insurance page, then send ads about life insurance. And what would that message be? Come back and do a quote, those kinds of things. So it's a strategy, right? Depending on what you want to do. So customer list, you have to be careful with this. They should be opt-in names, but if you have a customer list and you want to retarget them on Facebook with a message, you can do that. And so what'll happen is, if you have a CSV or a text file containing your names and email addresses, you can upload them into Facebook and it'll try to match up your audience and their email addresses with Facebook profiles. If it's B2C, you're probably going to get your maybe 60% match, 70% match. If it's B2B, maybe a little less, like 50, 40%. But it is a way to target your audience with messages and offers of people who are already either in your database or may have purchased something before. But it's I do it a lot though with different cross sells. Again, it goes back to the insurance example. Like if I have people who are on like term life insurance and we want to cross sell other insurance programs like disability. So we can upload our list of life insurance customers and send them a disability insurance message. Does that make sense, everybody? A little more detailed here, depending on budgets and things like that, or lookalike audiences, again, using the Facebook pixel, right? Because they'll, generally speaking, as people visit your website and Facebook is picking that up, it'll keep trying to emulate those people. So it could be like, rather than specific targeting, it might, for anybody who converted on a website, it'll try to take all those conversions and try to find lookalikes of those people, and which can extend your audience reach, using again the pixel to pick up all the interests and demographics of the people who visit and perform a conversion. So not to get too much in the weeds here, but you can do lookalike audiences with people who do different events on the website, or just pure website visitors, or people who did conversions. And you can decide how close you want them to match. Whether at the bottom chart there, they talk about the audience size, whether it's closer to 1% means they're the most similar, where 10% is broader. So it all depends what you want to do. But if you're limited on budget, then you probably want to stick with your general targeting. But if you want to experiment with reaching more people than in your targeting, then you can do the lookalike audience. It's actually a popular strategy for people who want to, again, reach more people who look like people who visit the website. Okay, we're getting to the fun now, all right? I know we're all having fun already, aren't we? So anyway, we're creating a saved audience here. This is going to be an example. I'm going to set up an audience here that I screenshotted called I Want to Reach CEOs. So who doesn't, right? So anyway, this is an example of some screenshots of here you can do your audience. Now we're going to do a saved audience, which is basically defined as an audience we're going to use with Facebook targeting options instead of a custom audience we just spoke about. But we'll talk about Philadelphia. And you can target the DMA, which is the entire region, but you can also upload, states or cities or postal codes or even addresses and do specific targeting on bulk with Facebook. So you could be targeting Philadelphia, and let's just say you only want to hit the Northeast, for example. Then you can just get a list of Northeast zip codes and upload them into Facebook and just target those zip codes. And of course, age is easy, target different, age breaks, and then gender and languages and things like that. All right, so here's an example, like you're going through the detailed targeting section. So right here, I'm targeting actually job titles of, and I just start what you do with Facebook, you just start typing some of them in, like CEO, founder, and then use Facebook's suggestions box to come up with more titles. So you only have to enter like maybe 2 or 3 of them and then use suggestions, and then you can just pick out which other ones you want to target. So I got a bunch here already, and I'll show you more of a detailed on that in the next slide. It's important also when you do this to keep an eye. You can narrow audiences in case certain audiences you have is too big. Based on your budget, you can narrow them, and I'll show you an example of that. And if there's audiences you want to exclude, you can do that as well. So I'll show you some examples of that. But before I get there, if you can see, there's 2 boxes here, suggestions and browse. Suggestions is like obviously Facebook giving you suggestions of other targeting. But if you don't want to do that, you can also click on the browse, and then you can actually, there's so many other elements. These are just sample screenshots of targeting people's interests. I can click on business and industry, and then get subcategories of who I want to target. Banking, and, of course, it's just A to C because it's screenshots. But, take advantage of all the different targeting that's available by clicking on the arrows and arrows and arrows, and keep going down to like a funnel until you actually pick who you want to target. You can target demographics, here is under different categories: education, financial situations, life events, work, of course, and then you have employers or industries and job titles. And that's where I found some of those before. So take advantage of all the tools that are out there and fine tune your audience. So here's an example of a couple CEO targeting that I did for this meeting. So here's this Philadelphia DMA. I got 70,000 people here, ages 40 to 60, interests, chief executive officer, business owners, job titles, all available on Facebook, CEOs, founders, chairmen, all these kinds of things that Facebook suggested. But it was a pretty large audience, and figure if I have a moderate budget, I wanted to use the narrow feature that we just spoke about, and that means they also must match. So it kind of like you have one audience. All these titles here are considered or, like or connections, right? Or. When you do also must match, it takes all these ors and then adds an and to it, if that makes sense. So you have all these ors and must match interest in B2B, business to business, or entrepreneurship. Because I didn't really want to target B2C, right? In this example, I just want to target B2B audiences. So I found that here, right? So it's chairman of who also must match B2B, if you get it. So, but it was still a large audience. So for this exercise, I wanted to get even further into a target to get to the 70,000. So I also did some other and matches with management, strategic management, business process, all these things. I typed in strategic planning and leadership, and again, using Facebook tools to come up with some other suggestions that I put in here. So really, I'm pretty comfortable reaching B2B C-level ages 40 to 60 in Philadelphia on Facebook with this campaign. Now, I also went even further here and said, well, maybe I can exclude people as well, because we showed that too. So take advantage of that, and you kind of experiment a little bit. Here's the same audience, except it's only 31,000. And that's because I excluded a couple things here. I excluded an interest in e-commerce because I didn't want to target an e-commerce audience for this example. So I just stayed with the B2B side. And then job title said, well, is there any job title I probably don't want to target anyway? Probably restaurant owners I put in, because that showed up. But actually in this day and age. But so that's an example of taking all these audiences and doing a couple exclusions. Now I have a really nice audience of 31,000 people to target.
Well, we have a question. Is that kind of 31,000, is that about the size you would suggest?
I don't know. I think it depends on your budget and everything, and you're not hit everybody, but you can go further if you want. You just had to experiment a little more. We adjust the age. It's a good question. I mean, if you have a moderate budget, maybe you can hit 10,000 people and go further. It depends on, and you can even do tests. You could say, hey, how about if I do ages 50 to 60 on ad set 1, then another ad group, I'll do ages 40 to 49, that kind of thing, and break it down and track that. But the point is there might be some other ways. Now, this is Philadelphia DMA also. You can just do Philadelphia and do a radius around Philadelphia City, right? So DMA includes like Delaware and, Jersey and Allentown and things like that for this example. I think it's just a matter of just, just playing with it and going through it and seeing if this makes sense. But, the smaller, if you have a moderate budget, the smaller audience, the better, but you also want to have enough audience and data to see results. So you really just have to experiment with it and play with different elements, find other ways to do an and, can narrow if you wanted to. You can also target income, and I'll show you that in the next slide. So here's another one. I tried to go a little, I know Beacon has a lot of financial planner type people. So now this one is 100,000. I didn't do any, but I had a little fun on this one, just an example of some targeting, right? So this is ages 45, 64, and I chose, on Facebook, you can target the top 4 higher income zip code segments based on household, right? So this is an example. So I'm not going to target under 50,000, under 50% income, right? So I'm just targeting higher income zip codes in the marketplace. And it doesn't have to be all 4. You got top 5, top 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50. If I wanted to lower this smaller, I wanted to target higher income, I'd probably take off 25 to 50 and just reach the creme de la creme who are playing around with Facebook. So, but anyway, but this, again, it's just an example of higher income audiences, 45, 64. And how else can I do the and, right, which is the narrow. So I'm targeting, it's financial planning. So I'm doing financial plan, financial services, retirement planning, money management, investment management, wealth management, all these kinds of things. So again, these are all ors. If you want to make it a smaller audience, you can do some of these as an and, right? So you might say, let's just have wealth management as an and. That way I might get down to 20,000, right? Again, for this example, I'm showing them all here as ors, but some of these can be ands if you want to really fine tune the audience. I did this for fun, just just to show everybody all the different relationship statuses that are available. So think about this. I'm targeting people in a relationship, married, engaged, unspecified, civil union, domestic partnership, open relationship, complicated, my favorite, separated, divorced, or widowed. The only thing is not here is single, but everybody else. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I wanted to show that. But anyway, but that's an example of how you can use all the different layers of audiences and keep thinking about your target audience and their mindset and what they're looking for, and what their interests are, and experiment with, different ways to narrow this audience down even further, and experiment with and get a good number of what you're comfortable with. All right, so placements is, Facebook always likes to do automatic placements, but a lot of it depends on, an automatic placement is every place where Facebook is, because that's where they optimize performance. But sometimes I always focus on manual placement so I can choose, because I may not have an Instagram page, and I know Facebook may get more engagement than Instagram. So it depends on your target audience. You can advertise on Facebook Messenger. The audience network is Facebook's group of mobile apps and sites that you could also advertise on for extended reach off Facebook, and usually more efficient that way. So, so there's all these different elements here, all the feeds, video feeds, marketplace, the right column, which only shows on desktop if you wanted to do that. Stories, which is more detail when you click in, different people's stories and then see their ads. But, all depends on what it looks like. And I'll show you an example of the creative there in a minute. Messenger, you see those little ads on your Facebook Messenger, if that's an option too. Again, in articles is, when you read, if you read like Washington Post page or something and you click on that, you might see an ad there. So again, it's really just a matter of experimenting where you want to go, and also depends on your budget. But, usually I start off, with, if it's an older audience, maybe go Facebook and experiment with some of the placements there besides the newsfeed. Because, obviously if you're just on Facebook on the newsfeed, the costs are going to be higher because it's more competitive. So that's why it's good to, extend it sometimes and test all that. Because just remember, we are trying to make this efficient, and, all these different platforms, they all use the same Facebook data. So you could be reaching CEOs on your audience network or Instagram or Facebook. It's just a matter of, what your message is, and your audience and your budget. Okay. Now, optimizing for ad delivery and everything. So this gets a little detailed here, but, you can optimize for link clicks, which means, people are more likely to click on an ad or to your business page. Landing page view is always recommended. That's actually people who go to your website. But if that's not a concern, you can also optimize based on, total impressions and reach if you just want to do branding, that kind of thing. So you get charged by impression or a link click. Link click is like pay per click, right? So, an impression is basically based on what we call cost per thousand impressions. So and that's kind of like a general media term when you buy media is cost per thousand. But it all gets optimized really. Usually you can optimize on landing page views, which is a preference, obviously, because you want more people to click on your website. And if you're worried about budget, you can put caps on. There's a cost cap, bid cap. Usually I just start off with letting Facebook learn and work it out, because they'll use all their algorithms to try to save you money. But if you're really stuck on, I don't want to pay more than $2 a click, then put that in here and I'll try to optimize it. You may not get as many impressions if it's too low, so you got to experiment with that. So that's why I think in the beginning, just go with, Facebook's, algorithms, and they'll, like I said, they'll try to aim your budget and get the most landing page views using the lowest cost and bid strategy. So it's an option there. Okay, let's build an ad. So again, I'm promoting myself, but it's just for example purposes here. So so you can do like a single image or a video, and hopefully they're you have them on your hard drive or your Facebook account, so you can gather images or videos if you have them. You can create slideshows if you have multiple images. Now, a carousel is also a unique ad. It's more scrollable and makes people actually click on images versus having them do themselves. So adds more engagement, but your message has to be strong in order to encourage people to do that. This is, and there's plenty of placements, and you'll look at all these things, right column, stories, apps. I'll show you an example of that. And then you write in your headline and your text of the ads, which you've all seen. So like I said, images, ideally 1080 by 1080 pixel size, because you're square and it can fit on most placements. They should be either on your hard drive or your Facebook account, depending on where you are, and just pick an image. Mostly it's good to have as few, mostly image. People like images versus text. So try to be nimble with the amount of text. Usually a rule of thumb is less than 20% of your image is text for Facebook to run them. Now, there's lots of call to actions out there, right? Depending on your business model, and you can, learn more is kind of a default, or no button, but you can see depending on your business model, all the different options you can have. Call now, get tickets, donate now. That's for nonprofit if you're doing that. Contact us, get showtimes, get a quote, pre-register, shop now if you're e-commerce, sign up, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Plenty to choose from. All right. For Facebook and for any medium, you should always be tracking your performance on Google Analytics as well. We mentioned this a while back, but as Zoe can explain this, right? You want to try? No, but anyway, using a Google Chrome, Google Analytics UTM builder, so that when you take your URL and add a source medium, name of the ad, and your campaign name, so that you can copy it and track it and put it in your Facebook ad, so that you can track the performance of your Facebook campaigns on Google Analytics. Okay, so when I build ads, I usually kind of experiment and start off with, it's an option on the Facebook ad account called the Creative Hub. And so what we just spoke about before, is, creating these ads and picking an image, and it'll basically, with the headline and the text and the image, it'll emulate this and all the different placements out there, as you can see which ones you like better and what they're going to look like. Because, stories and messenger stories and all look different. And this is important too, by the way, is, Instagram doesn't pick up like the headlines down here, higher palm business in. It just runs the text. So you might probably want to have a separate Instagram ad, so you can have a full message here if you want. And then plus add hashtags and things like that. So you have to keep that in mind. So once you build up those ads in the Creative Hub and bring them over to the Facebook Ad Manager, you have a base, headline and text that we just showed. But, Facebook will also allow you to add options to text as well as to headlines. And it's kind of, AI working again. You know what that is. So they're giving you, like, based on what you have, they're giving you other text headlines or other headline suggestions that you can use, and you want to add them in, and they can rotate, or you can create your own, enter another option. And when you do that, again, Facebook will look at those things, mix them up, and ongoing will optimize the performance of your ads based on which ones work best. So there's lots of options there for testing different ads and headlines. Here's some other examples of some ads. Here's one that's actually sending an ad to Facebook Messenger, actually, so they can send a message. How much do you cost? That kind of thing. But that's kind of interesting. If you don't want to go to a website, you want to test a placement to Messenger, if you have any questions, and you can do that too. And, you know, Messenger, again, is like a bot. You can actually go in and ask some default questions and things like that. I didn't want to get that too detailed in this presentation, but you can set up ongoing questions for people who want to send a message. You know, what's your name? Or what do you need? You know, that kind of thing. And then you can capture their email addresses. This one here is a Facebook lead gen ad. I use this a lot for content where instead of going to a landing page to download content, you can capture an email right on Facebook. So you build an ad here, and then you're going to, you know, capture a lead here. Let's see, name, email address, company name. You can update the forms as long as you have a privacy policy, because that's part of this. That's, you know, in the setup. And then and once people give up your email address, you can download them to your Facebook business page, and then you can, you know, utilize them, follow up with them, put in your email program, what have you. And then you can go to the, you know, view the website when you're all done so that people can see what they just signed up for. If it's a guide, you know, they should be able to go to a page where they can download the guide for free. So that's important because you don't want to have people enter their email addresses twice. So if you're going to do a white paper on Facebook and do a lead gen campaign and send people to a website to get the guide, it should be like a cloned page where they can just click and download the PDF for free. So there's a bunch of websites. I have a link in this presentation here, but again, there's lots of websites that can give you ideas for creativity. These are some, you know, here's a real estate one, you know, download a free business template. You know, again, that's a lead gen campaign. Here's another download for e-commerce niche ideas from a company. This one is a free webinar. So this call to action, sign up. And that's another, this one goes to a landing page. Limited seats available, of course. And this one is, you know, about project management for startups. Here's a BI program called Domo. And here's a fun business loans without paperwork. Learn more. So that really goes to a landing page and things like that. So I put a link here. This is where I got them from. 50 amazing B2B Facebook ads that will inspire you. And I'll send that to Zoe. So really that's kind of covers really Facebook. But if you're talking about lead generation, I mean, obviously once you capture the lead, you do want to call them, but you know, you do want to funnel people with ongoing nurturing. Obviously, if you're going to do lead gen campaigns, it doesn't stop there. You do need to nurture them, and that's a whole nother story, but you should always have an email sequence ready to go, you know, with a subject line, you know, problem, solution, offer, message in your follow-up emails. And, you know, and just have a good cadence when you get leads through Facebook, you know, whether it's email, send them, you know, maybe send them a LinkedIn request, call them, of course. It depends on, this is an example, it depends on how you want to do it. But like any business, any lead you get, you know, you try to call and you got their email. So put them in a nurture program with more thought leadership emails.
Well, we had some questions in the chat too. Really, there's two that are on the same issue. So the question is, how many businesses are really spending their time on Facebook beyond just the smaller businesses? And then kind of the follow-up to that question was, you know, who are the people, you know, in the 40 to 60 range B2B that are actually looking on Facebook? Like, do you have any inkling of that? Is it mostly the smaller business people? What do you think?
You know, people are people. It doesn't mean just because you're in business. It depends. And it's like, I think you have to test it. I mean, so I know environment is important, but you know, LinkedIn's a social network too. I know it's a little more business, but you know, I think that it does skew more small business, but I don't have all that research in my head right now, but it was shown in the first slide. I think the important thing is it's the message itself. You know, it's like reading a magazine and you see an ad. You know, I wouldn't be afraid to test things, especially if you're targeting the right way. Like I'm targeting CEOs. If they're on Facebook, and many are, it's not like they're not, then, you know, do a compelling message that attracts people. Like I do it all the time. I learned about tools left and right. You know, I'm having fun on Facebook, but I've learned a lot about different, you know, software that could help me, my business, or a client's business. So I wouldn't, you know, it depends on your business model and everything. Like, I don't think we're going to, you know, sell centrifuges to plant engineers on Facebook. But if you have a cool service, an application, software, management consultant services, financial services, whatever it is, I think it's worth testing as long as you have a good offer, a good ad, and something that relates to them.
Yeah, I think this other question is kind of related to that. How to use Facebook ads judiciously on a budget. Is there how does one choose the appropriate way to use the Facebook ads? Like, is there a certain type of offer or a certain type of service? It can be expensive if you just start every day posting, I have these services.
Well, I mean, you do want to test different ads and offers, of course. And I will say this, by the way, I've done a lot of LinkedIn advertising targeting executives. It's expensive. I've seen scenarios where it's $25 a click on LinkedIn, right? For the same audience on Facebook. Now, it may not be as specifically targeted as LinkedIn, but enough to say, well, it's only $2 a click, right? So, I mean, think about that with a limited budget. So, but the answer to the question though is like, I think you have to always give something of value, a compelling image. Like any marketing you do, it's what's in it for me. What's the outcome? Like, why should I pay attention to this? Oh, this is interesting. Oh, I can do this faster. I can do it easier. I can do it. I can save money with this. Looks like a cool tool to add to my business. Learn more. Get a demo. Get a trial. I mean, whatever we want to do. I think it's just worth testing and. With multiple creatives and multiple offers and being able to track it properly. Again, that goes back to, tracking and, analytics codes and things like that to measure the performance to your website after they click and engage.
And then other people were wondering, can we send out the slides to everyone after this?
Sure.
If anyone else has any other questions, if you want to unmute yourself and ask it or type it in the chat.
Hey, Paul, this is Jory.
Hello.
I've experimented with Facebook advertising over the years, and I think for people who aren't sure if it's the right platform for them, you can take a relatively small amount of money and you can do a trial campaign, for example, $25, $50, just to see how many views your ad gets and how many actions people take against your ad. It can be more of a learning opportunity for you. When I was listening to the questions, I think that if you're thinking that, are businesses shopping on Facebook for other businesses, that might be the wrong way to think about it. It's are people like us who are parents, grandparents, spending free time on Facebook, and when ads get delivered, do they pique your interest? I know for a lot of us, we never turn our business our business minds off all the way. So when I'm sitting looking at Facebook for fun and I see an ad for something, my business wheels start turning. So I think you might get a CEO at SAP or Boeing or something who's a grandparent, and they're there because they're looking at their grandkids' pictures. But they still look at ads when they come up. Paul, I had a question on interests and, so we're a nonprofit school for special education, as you know. How deep can we go in targeting based on interests? So obviously I can get to parents, I think, who are interested in education, but can I delve deeper into special ed, clinical support, things like that?
Yeah, you can. It depends on what's available in the Facebook nomenclature, right? That's or taxonomy. I think that's the word. But there's a lot of options out there. Again, why those tools are there is you type in certain words like therapy, or is it like, it's not going to get as detailed depending on what you're looking for. But I think if you know like the kind of interest your audience has, it may not. That word may not show, but suggestions will come up and say, oh, this is available, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a matter of just using the narrow tool like I showed and experiment with what's available on Facebook. Some may be, and you can, when you hover over those interests, you actually see, nationally how many people are in that group to see whether it's worthwhile. But and that's why the suggestions come in, because then you can get ones that actually have higher counts that will give you more data. But yeah, I mean, I've done campaigns, where I have like 6 or 7 different narrows into a funnel, right? Because it's a large audience, and we wanted to get people who are very specific. They're into organic food, they higher income, they're interested in personal care and self-help and those kinds of things. So you just keep going, keep going down, and that's where the fun part is experimenting with your budget and how much audience you want to reach, whether the interest should be an or an and, right? And that's where the experimentation comes in to get your audience right. And just picture the funnel and how deep do you want to go deep until you said, okay, that's good enough.
Paul, this is Darshan. I have a quick question for you. I was wondering, how does it work if you have a lot of content? How do you choose between also using paid or primarily content advertising?
You have a lot of
marketing. Oh, could you not hear me? You want me to repeat that?
Yeah, are you talking about like blogs and things like that? Or do you have like lead magnets?
Yeah, so I have a podcast and I have tons of content on there. And someone's been like, well, why don't you also combine that with paid advertising? And I keep wondering it would be very expensive for me to try to get listeners using paid advertising. I think, and I guess the question I had, I didn't frame it properly earlier, was how do you judiciously use paid advertising in a way that promotes your organic content-based marketing? Does that work?
Well, does
that make sense?
Well, if the idea of paid advertising obviously is to generate, a conversion, unless you're doing like you have a Facebook business page and you want to promote just engagement and interest. It all depends on your business goals, right? Is it conversion based or is it engagement based? And for branding, right? So, I mean, if you have different content offerings and you want to promote that, again, if you just want to promote your brand and engagement, that's one thing, and you can do that and change it up all the time. But if you want to advertise for leads, that's a different model, right? So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I don't think I have a clear enough question. So maybe that's the problem. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think. Okay, unless I heard it wrong, but you don't want to pay for anything really unless there's an objective, right? Your clear objective, is what do I want people to do, and how do I measure it, right? Am I going to like I said, I can promote thought leadership and brand myself. That means I'm not, doing lead generation, right? I'm doing content marketing and I'm promoting my brand. And then and I want more people to visit my brand, that I can't get organically because, it's like Google paid and things like that and other strategies. So, but if your goal is to say, hey, look, I want somebody to come and download a white paper or learn about my business, because remember, if they come to your website, don't think they're ready to buy right away, right. But at least if you have the pixel one, then you can start retargeting them with other offers and messaging. That's the whole idea.
Thank you. That actually was very helpful.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.